one of the things I always tell people is to find a template. And so if you're trying to learn to write songs, one of the main things you got to do is learn to see what a song looks like on paper, but also know what makes you tick. And so for me as a songwriter, I write most of my songs in my truck while I'm driving when there's no music on at all. Like when there's nothing going on, my imagination is able to go anywhere. There are times I've written songs in worship, but still after I'm done with the idea that I came up with in worship, I do still spend time in quiet so I can figure out or hear what's next. To every got to find what works for you, but the catch is you got to find it. And so, which means you have to take time and spend time with the craft. It's not something that you just say, oh, I'm gonna be a songwriter. No, you gotta spend time. You gotta write some bad songs before you write some good ones. Like it's easy to be discouraged as a songwriter because you feel like everything you want to write's got to be a hit. But sometimes you're gonna write 10 to 12 bad songs to find out one really good song. Okay. And so on social media and YouTube, they show songwriters in studio. They only show the good ones. They show the good songs. They don't show you the bad songs. So most of the time, those artists have written many songs that are, as we say, trash. but you got to go back to work and find that gem. Like it's work. Songwriting, there's a reason why there's so much money in it because it's a lot of work.
When you're a songwriter, you're very like, when you're creative in general, you're super insecure at first. Like, I'm scared. Like, I don't want to show this to nobody. Like, this is my baby. I don't know what other people are going to think. But I've learned that iron sharpens iron. That's in the Bible. Iron sharpens iron. I think one of the keys to writing great songs and learning how to write is working with other people. You cannot get better on your own. You have to be able to let people in and be vulnerable. As songwriters, we have to be vulnerable, especially coming into a place where, you're writing for the Lord. There's going to be times where he's going to deposit everything in you. And there's going to be times where you're going to need to let that next person in because they're going to have something that the Lord deposited in them that only if you let them in, it come together. So always, remember, iron sharpens iron. Like you can only get better when other people come into the mix. They're going to push you. They're going to stretch you. When I did the Maverick City thing, it was very, very different for me. It was very like, okay, like I had an idea, but now this person is throwing their idea in the mix. But now I got to say, okay, what does God want? What does God want? We all got to be prayerful together and be like, all right, God, where do you want this song to go? And if my ideas aren't being taken, then that's fine. Because at the end of the day, it's your will. It's for you. It's not for me. It's not, I'm not doing this for myself, but I'm doing it for you. And
the process is very personal. For some people, you throw on the music and you start feeling it, and then the ideas start coming to you. For other people, you may have a concept or an idea and you write the idea in the concept. And then now when you get the music, some people struggle to now take that concept and make it fit. Other people are good at it. They just have all the ideas bulleted out. And once they hear the music, they can make the connection. What process is easy for one person may be difficult for the other. So I agree with Amante. You have to get to the process that works for you. And the only way to do it is to do it. So start. See what it's like to write to a beat. See what it's to write to acapella. Or look at what it feels like when when you feel inspired. There's no music, there's nothing around, or even when you're sad. Because sometimes when you're sad and you're going through something, that struggle, that challenge you feel is not very different than what apostles in the Bible felt when they wrote and they were going through it and felt like they were alone and God wasn't hearing them. And those tough moments are encouragement to us. So you don't always have to be happy, chewing on a Snicker bar and the sun shining, everything great. Sometimes in the challenging moments, that's a good time to write too. So just try out different things, and what works for you will work. And what doesn't, you'll quickly realize, this is pretty horrible, so I don't want to use this process, but you'll only know when you get, see, one thing really quick I want to say, and I'll be done. When I was growing up, the idea was to try to perfect whatever you're doing, and any mistake you made is not acceptable. You want perfection. What's good about this era that you guys are growing up in is that the best way to do things is to make as many mistakes as possible, because the mistakes get you to a better place quicker. So when you trip and you fall, then you learn how not to trip and fall. So you want to make the mistakes, make the sucky songs, like Amante said, and that brings you one step closer to the better song. But get started. Your songs are not gonna all be hot. Some of them are gonna be Pepe Le Pew. They're gonna stink, but that's every step you take gets you closer and closer to the better song.
Nice.
I stop. Because then what can happen is, unless you're like in a situation where you have to deliver an album and the record company's looking at you like, you better do something now. But even as an artist, you have to know what works. You don't want to hurry up, rush, and put out trash, But for me, I would stop. Try to change your environment. Try to identify what it is that you're not feeling, what the issue is, what the problem is. Sometimes it could be something that you're dealing with outside of the studio, outside of the song, other issues. So if you're in a certain kind of mood and you just feel disrupted, seriously aggravated beyond the point of being able to even think, then that's not the time to take on a creative process. Not for me anyway. Those of you who know the Lord, this is a good time for prayer. It's a good time for worship. Nothing takes you out of a negative state like really getting before in the presence of God. And I'm not talking just about prayer like, Lord, let the song be dope in Jesus' name, amen. I'm talking about like really going into a worship where you lose yourself. Well, that may be a conversation for another day, but you got to reset.
Yeah.
If, switch it up. That always gets me a little bit, I get very inspired when I hear different ways of saying things, when I hear different melodies, I hear different chord changes. I'm like, wow, like I didn't even think of that. So now I'm starting to just get all these ideas of different harmonies, different melodies, different ways I can put these words together, wordplay. So that helps. Also, for you guys, I tend to, with my youth, so I lead a youth choir at my church too. And sometimes I just put on an instrumental on YouTube. Throw on an instrumental, look up prayer instrumentals on YouTube. Let it go. They have it for 3 hours. Literally sit in the presence for as long as you can. Before bed, once you get up, in the middle of the day, just start praying and watch the Lord deposit like melodies. Like you just start singing whatever's on your heart. If you feel like he's telling you like, I'm here for you, start singing that. See what comes out. Even if it sounds crazy, you're by yourself, but at least you're working that muscle. Give and it shall be given unto you. If you continue to give into the craft and give into that gift that God has given you, it's only going to come back.
That's it.
My love for God, I mean, at the end of the day, but I'm not gonna sit here and act like that was always my motive, especially as a teenager. So for you guys, I definitely started singing when I was 16 on the youth choir, and at the time I wasn't really digging deep. I was really just singing to sing, but there was no depth to it. I didn't really feel anything, but it wasn't until I really started doing things on my own and seeking God for myself that I actually started getting a deeper meaning to what worship was about. And I don't know how many of you really do that and take the time to dig deep, but I really encourage you to do that, because let me tell you, when you start looking for the Lord and praying and talking to him, like that's your best bro. Oh my gosh, the way you start hearing him, the way you see him and feel him. My prayer is for you guys to just really become sensitive to his spirit, especially at this age. It's gonna bless you, and that's the way I get inspired now. Just really welcoming God in. God, whatever you have, I start the day off. God, help me to hear you, help me to see you, even in the routine of my days. Something that I feel like a lot of us here, and even as youth, comparison. How many of you always compare yourself to other people, especially because of social media, especially because you be on the gram and you're like, wow, I just wish I could look like that person or sound like that person or write like that person. Trust me, even as a 24-year-old woman, I still deal with that. But we always, always have to crucify our flesh and always wake up and say, listen, God, crucify my flesh. Let it be all about you and not about me. It's not about how I look. It's not about how I sound, but it's about the gift that you gave to me. So never, never think that you're less than because you're not as good as the next person.
Yeah.
It does not matter. God made you the way that you are, gave you the sound that you have and the gifts that you have for a reason. And somebody somewhere needs to hear that.
What inspired me is really good musicians, good lyrics. I mean, I could hear like a bass line, even though I'm a keyboardist, and that'll inspire me. I can hear something fall in a rhythm, like books can fall. I'm like, and I'm like, oh, and I run to the studio. And like, how did you come up with that? Books fell. So inspiration, you know, I wouldn't even give credit to other things because really God has placed everything you need within you. It's just that certain things ignite the fire, but the gas is all in there already. You know what I'm saying? So if you're a person that is tapped into what God has given you, you'll find inspiration in everything. In the scripture, Solomon tells us to look at the ants. Why would Solomon, who's the wisest man who ever lived, why would he tell us to go look at ants? Because if you're a person who is wise or interested in knowing and learning, then whatever you look at, you see education. You look at ants, you start seeing the way they form and how they format, and you may get the idea for software or video game or something, just looking at how the ants function because they're using a certain system. So because of what's in you, you could look at anything. There could be a pile of poop on the floor, but something about the way the poop is, the way it aggravates you, makes you think of a cleaning system that would clean it and also replace the smell. Just ideas that come to you because you tap into what's in you. So you start realizing that there's inspiration in everything. So if your ears are open, your eyes are open, and you're connected to God, the source of all creativity, then you'll find inspiration in just about anything.
That's perfect.
As a father of two, I'm very cognitive of what my children are listening to. You got to understand that music, like songs, create imagery, and you see things when you hear songs, and so you're able to envision things, feel things that you never felt before, and you have to understand that what the goal at hand is when it comes to writing songs for when you're hearing songs. Like a lot of times, some of the times it's not even about making money, and sometimes it's not even about making a great song. Sometimes it's all it's all about is getting your attention.
Yeah.
Don't care if the song's good. Don't care about anything else. How can I get their attention? And once I get their attention, then they can listen to other stuff. What I'm about to give them is trash. Straight up trash. But if I can give them trash, they'll come on over and check out something else. So I just want to urge you guys, don't fall for the bait. Don't fall for the bait. Like I love music, but even in my older age, I understand that some stuff is bait. And I know what triggers me, what makes me think a certain way, what makes me feel a certain way. And I know what I can handle and what I cannot handle. Movies, music, pictures, those things affect my day. And not only affect my day, but also affects my sleeping. All from what I've seen and heard. All from what I've seen and heard. And so I know sometimes we just say it's just music or it's just a dope beat. But that's sometimes what the plan is, to make y'all think it's just a dope beat. But it's not just a dope beat. A lot of these artists are messing around with some things spiritually that we don't know, but because of their social media, it's bubblegum and smiles, and we think it's cool, but behind closed doors, what they're doing is some some demonic type stuff. And so I just want y'all to be thinking and be careful out there. Please be careful.
So this music, some music, is cancerous. It slowly grows into your subconscious and grows into your spiritual life and your walk. And all of a sudden, you start finding yourself having no interest in the things of God. You once used to love to go to church, now you hate church. And it may not be that drastic, but there has to be a change in you. That message and that garbage being in you is like poison. And as much as you think you're in control of the poison, not one of you could drink poison and it's not going to kill me. You saying it's not going to kill you won't stop the poison from doing what it was created to do.
Wow.
So I know in you, you think, I'm not going to let it affect me. I'm not going to get a gun. That poison is going to affect you somehow. As long as it's in your system and it gets into your subconscious mind, it has to affect you. And I'll say one last thing, and I promise I'm going to stop here. The other thing is that your brain is divided into two sides. And for those of you who this sounds way too deep, I'm so sorry, but I can't think of another way to explain it to you. So I'll try to keep it as simple as possible. Now that you can't understand, I just don't want to bore you to death. So you have the left brain, right? Think of your brain as being cut down the middle. Your left side of your brain is logical. So the left side of your brain goes, that's a very interesting song. I think it's interesting. I like the beat. I like the time signature. It makes perfect sense. Then your right brain, that's the creative side. That's the side that's going, yeah, 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 okay? So that's that side. And what happens is both sides of the brain takes that music and utilizes it to the best of its ability. So you might not actually go out and do a drive-by shooting, but you're going to have to become more aggressive because there's no way you can take that information in and the logical side doesn't start processing logically and the creative side doesn't get inspired creatively. Some of you, the way you dress is changing because you listen to drill music. Now, you don't notice it, but people around you are starting to notice certain things in your behavior. All right, I'll stop there.
I understand that I've been told I've been wrong, but I believe that people who don't even believe in God, if they're in the room during worship, something can happen for them. And if something can only way, yes, the Spirit of God takes over. But if they're in a moment and they're seeing these people worship and they're looking up to these screens and they sing these words and they understand them, then you can reach them. But a lot of times, so here's the truth, a lot of times these songs don't reach nobody but Christians, which is understandable. I get it. Worship is for that. But sometimes why not widen your horizon? Like, why not try to reach the person who doesn't? If the person who already knows God, they know that you're supposed to worship, so they worship. But the person that does not know God, when they see a word, see those words up there, sing those words, actually be able to feel and understand that moment, man, that's heavy. That is heavy to be able to say something that you've always wanted to say, but you weren't able to articulate it. Like, I was thinking that, you didn't know how to say it. Wasn't comfortable saying it. I didn't know I could say that. And so that's kind of how I think. Me personally, how can I reach the person who doesn't know Jesus and introduce them to him by me telling them how much I love him? Introduce them to him by me telling them how he's changed my life without being overly poetic.
Like I was saying before, you can only give what's in you. So even though you're approaching a song, if you're a worshiper, and that's what you do, when no one's looking, you're at home with your eyes closed, your hands in the air. When everyone's looking, yeah, with your hands in the air and your eyes closed and you're worshiping God. If that's what you do, then that's what goes into the music. I think the challenge with some gospel music is that what we're hearing sounds really cool, but it also reflects a lack of relationship. That's why it sounds really good, but you can't really worship to. You're trying to worship and you end up like, you know what I'm saying? Because it got the groove, but you don't sense the relationship. Like when you listen to Paul and different people who write in the Bible, you don't just hear guys writing thee, thou. I don't know how it sounds to you, but I hear relationship. I literally hear that he wake up in the morning thinking about God. When he has a problem, he talks about God. When he's happy, he's smiling, thinking about God. So when he talks, what comes out? God. But let me tell you, this is very much the case. You could be listening to a worship song, and the person who was being used of God to write the song, because of that, you start to feel the presence of God. You're listening to a song, you just feel his presence. And that happens because the person who was writing it has a relationship and it transferred. You got to experience their experience with God through the song. The same thing happens when somebody who's tied into demonic things and ungodly things, that gets transferred to you. And you start to eat of that fruit. So when producing a song, I say this and I'll be done in 10 seconds or less. When producing a song, you don't have to think too much of the chord progressions and all that stuff, because if you're a worshiper, then that's what happens. That the progressions that lead to worship come to you. You may do something that sounds good, and in your spirit, you be like, it sounds good, but that's not where God wants me to go. I may feel a fifth and a seventh here in the chord, and the bass going boom, boom, boom. And in my spirit, I'm like, wait, I need to just hold this. God just wants, instead of beep, 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 beep. That's you. You want to show your chops and be cool. God is just requiring this. And because of your relationship, it translates even into your selection of chords and notes and beats. I hope that wasn't too much. I just tried to.
Good, bro. Goodness gracious, that was good.
All right, last question. When should Southwell drop an album?
Oh, somebody actually asked. Nobody asked that
Tonight.
question. Tonight. Somebody did not ask that question.
All right, so I'm going to give a challenge to every young person on here. Every young person. If you're looking at your phone, stop looking at your phone. I'm giving you a challenge, okay? If you guys can get Minister Southwell to agree to do a song, I will produce the song. The song will be done within a month and a half or less.
Are you kidding? That's
Yes, done.
But this is what